everything is alleged. Hey, you guys. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I'm glad it's Friday. My God. I am glad it's Friday. I wanted to take a little break from Idaho tonight. Wow, that's so strange. Just now, so I haven't checked my phone in a while. I just got a Facebook, you have a new friend suggestion. And you know who it is? The Gideon guy. The actual Gideon Amare guy that was friends with Dylan. I looked up his account one time, months ago. And I just now, at 5:35, got that friend suggestion pop up on my phone. Well, you can't really fucking see it like that. I'll take a screenshot. That's crazy. I haven't looked at his profile in I don't even know how long. And when I looked at it, it was one time. That's crazy. Anyway, I wanted to take a break from Idaho tonight after the Siree just ridiculousness because I need a break. Because tomorrow night, we're going to be going over the whole damn thing all over again. I don't want to wait too long before we go back and do like an in-depth review of what he said again as, you know, a community together going over what he said. But tonight I wanted to just take a little break. I wanted to start earlier, but I just had too much other stuff to do. Now, the Sebastian Rogers case is interesting. You won't find any videos on my channel from when this started, but I probably did a good 23 maybe videos on this case. I ended up just privating everything after a while because the drama with Seth and T-Rev and the love triangle and the stuff with Tony Mathis, he has passed away over the past couple of months. Tony Mathis has passed away. He was the spokesperson for Seth, Sebastian's dad, for quite a while. He was the spokesperson for Caleb Harris's father. They actually knew each other. Caleb Harris was a college student that went missing in Corpus Christi, around Corpus Christi, and his body was found in like I guess you can just call it a manhole by one of the very small like water treatment I think it's a treatment little building in the field area near where he lived. There's still a lot of questions there. Honestly, like, why the hell was he walking barefoot outside of his house to get in the middle of that field? Like, where the frick was he going? What was happening? That kind of thing. There's never been any answers to that concretely, you know? But Tony Mathis was Caleb's father's spokesperson. And as Caleb's father and Sebastian's father were going over on the Pascal show, the Pascal show guy, the host Pascal, thought that maybe because of how well he seemed to behave with Caleb Harris's very religious family, that maybe getting Seth Rogers and Tony Mathis together might be a good idea. And I honestly, and I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, I'm just speaking facts on the history here. I don't know what happened between him hanging out with the Harris family and then starting to hang out with Sebastian's father side of things. But there was just a lot of angry, alpha male, take charge, I don't give a damn what anyone says, dog the bounty hunter-ish kind of shit start coming out of both of them. And also here came Dog the Bounty Hunter. On top of this, like, at night, whatever the shit, fake, dumb stuff happening. And then, of course, everything that's going on with Bullhorn Betty and the Proudfeet, Proudfoots, which is actually Sebastian Rogers' birth mother and stepfather. Now, there's a lot of questions. I've had a lot of questions about this case because nothing that they've really said has made a lot of sense. And it seems like there's maybe video of the last time that Sebastian was actually seen. As far as I'm understanding from what I have seen from keeping up with what was being released from Steve Fisher, who was hired by the Proudfoots to do a little bit of research and try to figure out what was going on. He went out there, did a bunch of ground walking, found a whole bunch of different areas where there were like holes and things. The construction site near Sebastian's home is a really big question. a really big question. There's just so many questions about what the hell and everything else. Now, something that Seth is going to say in this very first clip that we're going to watch is interesting, because I have been under the impression this entire time, and it made legitimately no sense to me. Some of you guys will probably remember this, that there was no security system or cameras whatsoever at Sebastian's house. And it made legitimately no sense to us when that information came out in the beginning of the case, because his mother worked for Brink Security. So it was very strange that we were being told that there just simply was no security. Not only do you have a diagnosed autistic child, but you work for a security company, meaning you can get a hella deal and you're not using that hella employee discount to arm your house. That's odd. I found that very strange. Well, what Sebastian's father says in this first clip is he wants to know why the security system not wasn't there. Why wasn't it working? And that really threw me for a loop, because that means that it existed. See, that's been something that's been like a big question. So if it actually had a system and for some reason it just happened to be disarmed and not working, just that it happened to be night, that's a big problem for me. And I've really tried to stay really balanced on this case, which is another reason why it was really difficult to even bother continuing, because as unbiased as you tried to be with the facts of the case as they were being laid out and as we were actually getting stuff verified from the police, Chris Proudfoot might be a freaking agitating asshole, but there's no charges. They can apparently verify where he was that night. They don't have any reason, even though I have all of the questions for Katie Proudfoot, because she is apparently the adult that was there at the time this all happened. They apparently have no reason to suspect her. We've seen the canine reports. We've watched portions of video. We've seen the dog go into this little pond area, go towards the construction site. We've seen camera footage that shows a shadowy figure and like in all black sort of going that same direction. There's lots of things that sort of point to where Sebastian could have gone, but it's the why. And if it is just as innocent as he decided to just take the hell off that night for no reason other than maybe he wanted to go do whatever. I mean, who freaking knows? They're saying that there's no connection of anybody that he was talking to online. But to me, that doesn't really mean too much, because I go back to the Alicia Navarro case where she was like, 14, an autistic teenager as well. And she met this piece of shit that groomed her on the internet. And for years, they apparently had no idea where she was. At 18, she waltzes her little butt up into a police station and says, hey, by the way, I'm that missing chick. I'm 18 now. Can you take me off the list? And then all of a sudden they find out what happened. For years, they had no way to find out who she was talking to. So even though they've already said that, I've not completely gotten rid of that, because these gaming systems, like there's just no way that you can hide all of that in a gaming system. And there's just no way to me that some random ass person was able to hide the connection that they had with a 14-year-old child. Maybe it was because that case wasn't escalated. I don't really know all of the involvement when it comes to the agencies. But if the FBI would take over with this case the way that Seth Rogers wants them to, I can bet you that they'll find something. Because maybe a little bitty agency not being able to find something, I'll give you that. But when you have Homeland Security or you have the FBI or these Secret Service departments that get involved in this kind of stuff, like we saw with other cases, there's really no reason for you not to be able to find something if there's something to be found. So I don't know. If there really is no connections to anything, then what did he run off for? What was happening? Yeah, he's autistic, but they claim he doesn't just run off. But then again, there's a neighbor claiming that he, I think it was a male, found Sebastian underneath one of his vehicles one day in the driveway or something like that. So maybe the family's not being as honest with us about what's actually happening with him as they should be for us to be able to really know what's going on. I don't know. But we are going to watch this little clip right here first. And when I tell you, Seth looks bad. Seth looks like a grieving father. He has puffy eyes. He hasn't shaved. He looks like he has not slept. He is, and look, he looks like he is grieving. He looks like he is so upset. Now, a lot of it also probably might have to do with the fact that he doesn't have Tony anymore either, which really does suck for him if they were still in contact. before Tony Mathis passed away, because that does take away a resource for Seth when it comes to him being able to have people to talk to, because apparently the police aren't talking to them, which is something that we hear all the time, right? So he just looks like he's being eaten up. Hey, Boss CJ, how you doing? He just looks like he's being eaten up, and it's just really sad. It's just really sad looking when you really just like, you really see it. So I just wanted to, we're going to watch this little clip. It's like 8 minutes. And then we're going to go over the actual lawsuit. Now there's 2 lawsuits that were filed here. And I want to shout out Nerdy Addict on Twitter. He had these posted, or he had this 21-page docket posted on his Twitter page. Now there's also one that Seth filed against the CPS office for, whatever it's called over there. Now that one's a $15 million lawsuit, and it alleges a whole bunch of things from prior cases. Some of the things that we've sort of already heard before, but it apparently has more details. I don't know exactly where that one is. I didn't know about the secondary one until after the fact. So at some point this weekend, I'll look for it and we'll go over it in another live if it has different information. If not, then we'll just sort of look at whatever might be different, because I have a feeling that the majority of the information is going to be about the same. Oh, hey, Julia, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Yes, that's what it said. It said it was the largest one. That's crazy. And see, like, I understand his frustrations, and I honestly don't think that they did a bad job in the investigation from the pieces that I have heard. I mean, again, oh, it's so funny you just mentioned her. Where's she at? Where's the Debbie Collier comment? Oh my God. Okay, look, I went over to my Rumble right before I got on here to see if I had any of the old videos that I did on there. And I was coming across the Debbie Collier videos. And that case really does still bother me. The way that everything happened and the way that she was found and the mix up and everything else, it just seemed like very small town cover up. And it's very strange and it still bothers me. You damn right. You damn right. Thank you so much for the gifted membership, Jeff Child. I appreciate that. I love your little kitty cat so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for the 10 gifted memberships, Lorena. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't have the comments on the screen. Thank you so much for that. We have 11 new members. That's awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, this, I didn't really hear any, I mean, there's things I could miss, okay? I do know that Seth makes a comment that I didn't really like hearing that reminded me very much of the Idaho case, where he said that when he got there, the house was not closed off as like a crime scene type area, like it wasn't being preserved correctly, that he was just allowed to walk in. People were just walking in and out of the house. It wasn't being preserved. I didn't like that. I mean, if part of that is part of this, then I can totally agree with that aspect of it. But as for the rest of it, if they were doing search warrants and they had cadavers out there, which one of them is in the chat, if they had all these people out there, plus we had all of these personal organizations, these private investigators on both sides, it was rampant on both sides, okay, on Seth's side and on the Proudfoot side. They had all kinds of people, names I've never heard of before in my freaking life. Okay, now granted, I hadn't been here for very long. This happened in what was it, 2024? February 2024, right? I hadn't been doing this very long, but these were names I'd never heard of. So there was just a whole bunch of new players that just came out of all of this. And even with all of those collaborative efforts, even though they might have been a lot of them animosity driven, because there was just, I don't know what the hell happened with this case. I don't know why it attracted, what it attracted. I don't know. But the at night people and the dog, the bounty hunter stuff and everything else, like it really just became, I mean, most people compare it to Summer Wells and what sprouted from it. And it really took away from Sebastian himself. It really did. And it still does. It still does, because, I mean, granted, there's not really anything going on, but if Sumner County doesn't have anything to go off of, I don't know. Now, can they hand it off to the feds? I don't know. I don't know what the stipulations are for that, but that seems to be what he's wanting. He wants them to give it. He's been wanting them to give it over to the feds. I don't know what would need to happen for that, or if it could be classified federal. I don't know. I don't know how any of that works, unfortunately. So let's see what he says here, I think this is the first one that came out when the lawsuit got announced, and he just looks defeated, guys. He just looks real sad.
And few answers. Now, Sebastian's father, Seth Rogers, is filing a federal lawsuit accusing the Sumner County Sheriff's Office of failing to properly investigate his son's disappearance. Rogers agreed to sit down and talk to me exclusively. And here in our extended conversation, we talked about the son he misses every day, the emotional toll of living without answers, his frustration with the investigation, and why he believes the search for Sebastian is far from over.
Yeah.
We began with a simple question. How has he managed the weight of the past 2.5 years?
People say I'm strong and I got a lot of patience.
Look at him.
People say that, but they have no idea.
Sad.
Being strong, I'm not strong. I'm just determined to find my son. Strength has nothing to do with it. The weight of the world that I feel on my shoulders every day, unless you've been in the situation of your child missing and not knowing where he's at, you don't have any clue.
Tell me about Sebastian.
He's my saving grace. Before him, I was probably heading down the wrong path in life. And then I had a child. It was like God gave me a purpose in life. And he still is. I just got to find him.
From your heart, what do you need?
I need my son home. I need my son home. There's nothing else.
He looks like he hasn't slept in literal weeks. Look at him. He looks so sad.
My goal is, from the very beginning, is to find my son. And it will continue to be the goal until he is found. There is no other.
February 26th, 2024. How do you learn Sebastian is missing?
I got off of work at 7. We're not allowed to have cell phones. When I get to my truck, I got a text message saying 911. So I called the stepfather, and that's when he tells me Sebastian's missing.
When you get to Hendersonville, what do you first see?
So there's police, and there's like tracking dogs, and there's just a bunch of people walking around in the yard, in and out of the house.
Okay, listen to what he's about to say, but also remember there was some really good dispatch audio that came out where we listened to the officer that was handling the dog that went into the retention pond. It was very descriptive, the way that he was describing him going.
And then I walk into the house, and I walk to his room.
His room is the first place you go.
Yeah. I want to see what his room looks like.
Why was that important to you?
It's the last place he supposedly was. What's going on in the room states what I need to look for.
Did anything seem off?
A couple things seemed off. I don't know why. His switch is on the floor, plugged into the wall. The closet's a mess. There's things all over the floor. It just didn't seem right.
This has been described as the largest search for a missing child in Tennessee history. Did you think a search that big would find at least one clue?
Would have been nice.
Yeah.
How can you have 7 different agencies and hundreds of people working on stuff and not find any speck of evidence that he was there?
People don't just vanish into thin air.
No, they don't.
The idea Sebastian just walked away from the home without his phone never made sense to you.
No, sir.
I know that they tried to say that flashlight video was something with some trash trucks or some crazy shit like that, but I'm just never going to believe that. I'm just honestly just never going to believe that. Not from what we know of what that location actually was. It's not a reflection of no trash light trucks. The fact that the only thing that they can claim that Sebastian had missing was his flashlight, and you can see 2 flashlights meeting up together. I'm sorry. I don't know why they try to pass it off like it's nothing, unless it really does mean something and it's like the only thing they've really got, so they're trying to discredit it publicly. I don't know. All I know is that up until the point where I couldn't watch this anymore, from everything I knew of where that location was, the timing of it, no, I don't. It's not a damn trash truck.
Why not?
Because it's not my son. It's not something that I could envision him doing. I've stated this before, that for him to leave that house without his shoes, without a coat, without his backpack, without Legos in his pocket, taking his switch or grabbing his phone, he would have had to been running. Somebody's in the house and he's trying to get away.
Were investigators at the home when you arrived inside?
Yeah, there was an investigator sitting at the dining room table.
Was he talking to anyone?
Nope.
Just sitting there.
Was he
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there?
Yep.
Not looking at anything?
Nope.
Was the home secured like a crime scene?
I walked in and nobody even asked me who I was.
You were just free to walk through the home?
I was free to walk anywhere.
In the first few days, how difficult?
Like, could you imagine if, like, somebody is responsible for Sebastian going missing, and with how Seth described it, they just, like, showed back up and walked around? I mean, look what happened in the Idaho case. Somebody, apparently, according to a sheriff interview, put on a ATF outfit that belonged to a family member and walked around the scene impersonating a federal officer. Detective just sitting there doing what? Seth gets there and the cop's just sitting there. What are you doing? That's not finding the child by sitting at the table. That's wild.
Was that for you to see what is unfolding?
I was searching for my son.
I know that he's a whatchamacallit. Is it a guard? Like, not a cop, but a guard, right? So he had, like, his uniform on.
You just couldn't sit around and wait for an answer.
Maybe that's probably why. That's a good point. That's probably why they didn't ask who he was, because he looked like he was law enforcement. That's like, because if you're not really, like, looking and you're just in passing because you're in the middle of trying to find a kid, yeah, I bet you he kind of, like, passed off as an officer.
I've put over 100,000 miles on my truck, going down any rabbit hole I can find, any tip that happens to come in.
Why does that fall on you?
Yeah,
it falls on me.
That's the one thing we did see with Idaho. They put somebody at the door. So yeah, you're right. There should have been somebody at both entrances, because wasn't there a back door too? They should have had somebody at both. Even though didn't they say they had a bunch of stuff piled up against the back door? For some reason, that's how I remember it being piled up against the back door. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly or not. But B, if I am remembering that correctly, can they tell, like, how long something's been stacked up against the door, or if it's, like, just been put that way? I don't know if they can.
Free to walk through the home.
I was free to walk anywhere.
In the first few days, how difficult was that for you to see what is unfolding?
I was searching for my son.
Yeah, I'd have gone right in there.
You just couldn't sit around and wait for an answer.
I've put over 100,000 miles on my truck, going down any rabbit hole I can find, any tip that happens to come in.
I don't remember the last time I heard anything about Katie coming out and saying anything. And I know that the clip that I want to watch after we go through the document towards the end, that one came out, I think, like, later on yesterday. They said that they reached out to the Proudfoots and they didn't, like, they don't have anything from them. I can't remember if they said they just didn't want to comment or if they just couldn't get a hold of them, but they apparently tried to, and they don't have a response. Now, I don't know if that's changed over the past few hours since I found, like, the way that I wanted to do this or not. But as of right now, not that I know of, no, not about the lawsuit or anything.
Why does that fall on you?
It falls on me because I don't believe anybody else is doing it.
But that should be the job of the lead investigative agency, the sheriff's office.
Should be.
You believe they failed your son?
I believe they have.
Do you believe they failed you?
I know they have. Because it's 2.5 years and there's no nothing. They won't even do a press conference. And when they did do a press conference, they didn't even have a picture of my son up. How can you not have a picture of the missing child so people know who you're looking for? That does not make sense.
At first, did you have faith they would find him?
Yeah. I have no faith now.
When did that faith begin to fade?
When they started not telling me any information.
When did you stop waiting for answers and start questioning
soon,
the investigation?
Probably within a month. When they kept telling me if I had a child missing, this is the detective that I want on the case. And when that detective doesn't answer phone calls and tells me he only wants to deal with text messages, I'm sorry, text messages are very impersonal.
Yeah, text messages are very impersonal. That's ridiculous. The lead detective that's your contact for your child being missing tells you, don't call me, I prefer text messages. You're nothing but a case number to somebody like that. They don't give two shits.
And they kept telling me if I had a child missing, this is the detective that I want on the case. And when that detective doesn't answer phone calls and tells me he only wants to deal with text messages,
Rude as hell.
I'm sorry, text messages are very impersonal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the sheriff's office started to ignore you?
Yes. They don't want to answer questions. I think they should be answering questions.
They should answer your questions because you are his father.
Correct.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, I don't think they put any effort in finding my son anymore.
Has that silence or lack of communication
Says a lot. It says a lot when they won't speak to me. To me, it says that they know that they screwed the pooch.
That silence lets you know in your heart they didn't do their job right?
Correct.
Since the ground search ended, one...
No, I know that there was something about a burner phone. That was the most recent thing that had come out. And we sort of talked about it in passing. Somebody in chat might know the actual like details of that, but there was something about a burner phone and a call that they verified like happened with a burner phone involved that night. And that was like the last update. And I want to say that it had something to do with Seth. So if there's like weird stuff going on, maybe that's a reason, you know, the same way with the Consalvases, that no one's speaking to you. But it has been like a super, super long time. And I mean, at this point, like you can call this a cold case. Yeah. Pretty much. Because like the last time that the police really said anything, it was like debunking all the crazy shit that was going on online with like the green hoodie lady and shit like that. Because, you know, there's a hoodie person in like every case now, you know, apparently. This case became such a clown show. My God, this case became such a freaking clown show. I mean, it's bad, girl. There was no protection because of what happened last year. So places in town that never got touched are completely destroyed. There's barges that are, there's a big, huge barge that's stuck under the bridge in the middle of town, and it's causing major issues. My sister's place didn't get touched last time, and this time, like, they had a bunch of issues and were out of electricity for a long time. Dad was out of electricity for a long time. There's, like, in the middle of town where, like, Gibson's and the big HEB was rebuilt, like, where the original location is, that they just, like, rebuilt a bigger one on the same lot. They, like, turned it and built a bigger one. Like, it had, like, 3 or 4 foot of water. All the protections are still gone. They just now, like, I don't know, a couple months ago, I guess, planted some like baby trees along the riverbed at the Louise Hayes Park area, to, like down the Guadalupe, to try to get all that restarted. Now those all just got like dug back up. They still have the, I can't remember the adult's name, but that little girl from the camp is also still missing. So there's 2 people. We know there's more people than that missing. That's just who's getting the most attention. People in Kerrville know better. They have people out there constantly. The Cajun Navy, whichever one's the right one, because I get that confused too. Whichever one's the good one, they literally just left there, not like a couple weeks ago, from helping them do dive searches under the dams and the bridges, because they're still looking for people, and they're still taking pieces of houses and cars and stuff out from underneath all these places. And they just left and just have to turn right back around. I had no idea it was going to rain. Dad didn't tell me. He had just went back down there. I didn't even know it was going to rain. He was here for the last year's flood, had to go back down there to drive a bus so he could help people get in and out and start driving stuff around for cleanup. This year he was down there for it, and it's worse. I think there was only like one death because there was like better warnings and stuff this time, and there was just like one person, which still sucks. It's still horrible, but at least one person that I know of since checking. But no, like when it comes to like where the water reached, oh yeah, no, it's worse. It definitely reached places it never ever has reached before. Dad was just driving around in it trying to figure out what's going on. I was like, why are you driving? You know, what are you doing? Go back to your house. Stop driving around in this damn shit. Hey, welcome back, Cajun Bayou Queen. Thank you for rejoining. Thank you. I mean, yeah, pretty much everything that we know that's come out on the internet has pretty much been, you know, debunked when it comes to sightings and stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, there was a phone. Yeah. Yeah, barge got stuck. I was kind of freaking surprised too. Welcome, Debs. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everything seems to be better. I had got updates earlier, but yeah, it's pretty bad. But I'm like, at this point, I'm just kind of wondering, like, is like every time it storms, is it going to be way worse than it should have been? Because now we've got that huge, you know, barrier of protection missing right there. Probably. It's going to take a long time. Those trees that were ripped out of the ground right there in the Louise Hayes Park area and like all along the Guadalupe, all the way from Hunt, all the way past Center Point, like all the way down there. Some of those trees have been there 50, 60, 7,500 years. That's a lot to have to heal. That's a lot.
Press conference, one detective on the case, no reward, 18 months of silence. What does that tell you about how much the sheriff's office cares about your son?
They don't care about him at all.
I mean, yeah.
In the past,
really doing
you
a
have
lot.
said the Sumner
Talking-wise
County
anyway.
Sheriff's Office should step aside and let the FBI take over this case. Why hasn't that happened?
My personal opinion is ego. And they don't appreciate that. There shouldn't be ego involved. It should just be urgency. Urgency to find the missing child. Ego should never step in when it comes to a professional job.
If there's any way possible,
Hey, JLL, how you doing?
Sebastian is able to see this, you and I speaking, what would you want him to know?
I love you, son, and I am looking for you, and I won't stop until I find you. I don't know if he's got a pillow. I don't know if his belly's full. I don't know if he's got clothes. I don't know if he's got shoes. I don't know if he's being taken care of.
Yeah.
And all these things hurt. All of them hurt. I don't know what's going on with my child. I just know that he's not where he should be.
Do you believe Sebastian's still alive?
Every day. No evidence otherwise. I don't understand how people can think that he's deceased.
You need your son to be alive.
I need my son found. There's no room in it for him to be deceased. He's alive. He's just lost.
Yeah, no, in its own way, yes, I do. In its own way, yeah, I really do. See, the Idaho stuff, like there was like the 4chan situation. Ooh, and then there was the I mean, it was more like focusing on Kaylee and Jack. Like it had its own little weird narrative, and the family drama hadn't really started yet. The family stuff, the Consalvases coming out and like twisting stuff and doing all the stuff that they were doing, and everything that started really happened after the arrest and after some details started coming out and after more information started coming out. It's when it really started ramping up. There was a lot before that, but it was like not really stuff that was related. I mean, not like related in the way that everything ended up anyway. And like the Emily Bailey stuff and like the Jack in the Box person maybe being this fat guy that apparently got in trouble for always eating people's orders, all the JLR stuff, finding tapes in dumpsters and all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. Wild ride. But this went weirder, is I guess how to put it. It went weirder. because there was like love triangles that should not have happened. There was private investigators and different criminals that want to be detectives to try to hide their criminal history popping up out of nowhere, creating organizations, and just a bunch of just it was very much an episode of Jerry Springer. Yeah, Jerry Springer is pretty much how you can put it. Yeah. And while most of the clown show stuff was coming from Seth's side of things, not sorry, that's the truth. There was still a lot of it coming from the Proudfoot side because of their constant fight with Bullhorn Betty. And now I don't know the extent of everything that she was doing. I don't like her, but I don't know everything that she was doing to them. All I know is that at this point, like a judge found her liable for some stuff and she got arrested at some point. I think I remember seeing a mugshot, and now there's like a federal lawsuit for something. I don't freaking know. There's all these little side things happening in this case, the same way there's all these little side things happening in Idaho, except the side stuff happening in Idaho might actually lead to some like discovery of things actually coming out and answers that have been suppressed finally having answers, whereas like nothing that Bullhorn Betty and the Proudfoots are arguing about is going to answer anything. Nothing about the love triangle between T-Rev and Seth and that one chick is going to answer where Sebastian went. It was just a bunch of unnecessary dumb shit. So yeah, I guess I can say it's worse. Yeah, I guess I can say it was worse. It was trashy. There you go. Hey, buddy. Yeah, it was much more trashy is the word. And that's not fair at all. It's not fair at all. At all. And you know what's funny too? T-Rev actually came up in the comments. Actually, I'm glad you're here. T-Rev came into the comments when we were talking about JLR and Magnolia and said that verified something that I was pretty much already told, that Magnolia had reached out to other YouTubers about the abuse and all the bullshit that was going on with JLR to try to like get some help on like exposing what was going on so that she can get away from him. And he came up in the comments and admitted that she had like approached him before and like told him stuff that was happening. And my comment back was like, and you didn't do shit? Like you didn't say nothing? Like what? Like don't just come out and be like, oh, she told me. I don't give a damn if she told you. If you didn't do shit, shut the hell up. What's the difference? All you did was expose yourself for not doing a damn thing. Dumbass. Crazy stuff. I mean, like I said, I don't know. All I know is what the judge said and what's happening according to headlines. I stopped paying attention to all that stuff. Oh, and then the RICO case. Oh, my God. See? The RICO case. I forgot about that. That's all over. See, Summer's case was the same thing. That's the case that the most people compare this to is Summer's case. That is true. That is true. Okay, so let's look at this document. Again, there is another lawsuit. There is one against like the child support people, not child support people, Jesus Christ, the like CPS type people, because he's claiming that there were things that they had investigated and they didn't take seriously. They didn't alert him to things that were going on, that they didn't do what they needed to do in order to protect Sebastian, to remove him from the situation, and again, not letting him know what was going on, all those things. So we're going to go ahead and see if there's any of that in here. And like I said, if there's anything different in the CPS-ish one, when I do find it, then I'll just do like a short little rundown video of like the differences. I do have a feeling it's going to majorly be the same. Yeah, I tried to just like, that's why it just got really hard to talk about it, because the more that like you try to just be like, okay, well, this is what the cop said, and you know, this is what the K9 people said, and this is what's going on now, like officially in the information, and oh, the private eye went out there and he took a look at stuff, and this was what he reported. Like as much as you tried to like stay unbiased, like you got eaten up by both sides, because basically they only had so many people giving a shit because they needed the drama. Like that's how it always is. It's the people that want to be just constantly like vampires, like energy vampires. They just want to be in the middle of all the chaos, and they lose track of what the hell's really going on, because at the end of the day, they don't really care. They're not there for the right reasons. They're there for themselves. Those are the people that latch on to these kinds of cases. So it just got really hard to talk about it at all. It really did. Like it just got ridiculous. But let's go ahead and read this and see what's happening. Okay. This is Seth And it's against Sumner County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Eric Craddock, Detective Brandon Carter, in his official and individual capacities, John and Jane Does 1 through 10. I don't know who the frick that's supposed to be. I'm assuming other employees, I guess, of maybe Sumner County. I guess we'll find out. Here is the preliminary statement. The civil rights action arises from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office deliberate indifference to the disappearance of, they have his entire name in here. Okay, we're going to just call him Sebastian, but his full name is Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. His father always wants to make sure that his whole name is out there, which is totally fine. But for the sake of every time that his name is mentioned, we're just going to Sebastian. Okay, so deliberate indifference to the disappearance of Sebastian, minor child, a 15-year-old child with autism spectrum disorder, severe combined typed ADHD, and 6q27 chromosome deletion syndrome. Now, I don't know if that's the exact same one that Gypsy Rose had, but when people talk about Gypsy Rose's chromosome disorder, it's something very similar to this. Who vanished from his mother and stepfather's home in Hendersonville, Tennessee on February 26th, 2024. Sebastian is not an ordinary missing child. He is a profoundly vulnerable minor with multiple documented disabilities, a history of SA that had been reported to and investigated by the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. And as a matter of fact, that's one thing that I really got aggravated with Seth for. Now, when he came out and mentioned that part, I don't know like what was the reason why he felt the need to mention that when he mentioned it in like some interview he was doing online. It was very kind of odd to me the way that he mentioned that portion of situations with Sebastian, because that apparently happened when Sebastian was like really young. But there was also a lot of stuff that was going on in way of Chris Proudfoot's daughter, because he does have a child. Katie's Sebastian's mother, but Chris Proudfoot is his stepfather. So that would mean that Katie Proudfoot has a stepdaughter. Now, apparently, Sebastian and his stepsister were pretty close, and they would even like FaceTime each other a lot. She's a lot younger. There was conversations from the mother of the stepsister, the little girl, and that was a whole lot of drama too. She came out with a whole bunch of stories about Chris Proudfoot. There was some custody stuff going on that really sort of like, I guess that was kind of like the first wave of people kind of like losing sight on what the entire point was, because everyone got so absorbed in the family court drama around the ex and Chris Proudfoot. I guess that was like the first wave of distraction with the extra stuff. You know what I mean? I think that's probably where that came from. But it didn't seem like what happened when he was 2 in a different state completely would have really anything to do with what was going on here, unless it did. And there was other things going on that, again, that they weren't telling us, because when all of that stuff got brought up, all of the allegations that there was anything currently happening were pretty much denied all the way around, you know? So, I mean, that's again, just what the family's telling us. We don't know what the police might have found on things, or what other things, that conversations they may be privy to that, you know, we're just being told whatever. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really know. There's like no answers. There's no answers to anything when it comes to this poor kid. A home life that DCS's own records show was marked by physical, emotional degradation, and a stepfather whom neighbors reported hated the child and wanted the child to no longer be alive. There was a story that came out that apparently Sebastian had been outside, and Chris Proudfoot was sort of like hosing him off, but the hose was like at really high power, and it was witnessed by somebody in the neighborhood. What annoyed me with that is that, and again, unless I missed it, it really bothered me that story was coming out after, and there wasn't, again, unless I missed it, there wasn't anywhere where that was like actually turned in and reported that anyone saw that happening outside. So that's another thing, like, all you nosy little Nancy neighbors, you want to come out now that the cameras and the YouTubers are out there in the neighborhood and say, oh, you saw this and oh, you have all this information. But were you really doing anything at all? I don't really know. I don't know. I remember the one lady that came out and talked, I think, to like freaking JLR, which always makes it worse. There was just so much drama here. So much. DCS had formally determined that Sebastian was at serious or imminent risk of removal from their home. Now, I'm going to assume that Sebastian's dad has those documents. I know that a lot of that stuff apparently had gotten released, or at least had been talked about being released. I don't remember reading any reports myself. But if he's also filing suit against DCS, I'm assuming that he has reports that state this, that Sebastian was at serious or imminent risk of removal from their home. That's really important if that's true, because that means that somebody should have stepped in way before that, and somebody chose not to, which is probably why we are here today. And remember, as far as we know, they've been able to verify where Chris Proudfoot was, as far as we know. Katie Proudfoot was home alone with Sebastian. They want us to believe that when she got home that night, that he was in the vehicle with her after leaving Texas Roadhouse, and that it's him that is taking out the trash, even though even Seth that has seen the footage says, just like we can't see shit, he can't see shit, you can't tell who that is, but they're just saying that it's him. We don't really know that for sure. I don't know if there's been any other proof of life past that, because you can't see on camera who's in the vehicle. Now, I have heard that apparently there was inside of the vehicle dash cam in Katie Proudfoot's vehicle. Does anybody know if that's legit? I remember hearing that they think that there was dash cam in Katie's car, and that's how they know that Sebastian was in the car with her, but I don't think it was ever released. I just think I remember hearing about it being talked about. Which, I mean, not releasing it's one thing, but you'd think that they would have, if it's existing, then you'd think that they would have at least released a screenshot. Yeah, the neighbor's name was Bobby, yeah. Yeah, it was something that was mentioned just like a couple of times towards the end of whenever I started paying attention to, so I'm not really quite sure. It just that's why it was really difficult to try to keep up with it. It was just so much, just a lot of people wanting to make up things for attention, just all over the place. It was just a lot. It was just a lot. Despite all of this context, which was known or readily available to law enforcement through the DCS records, the DCS Child Protective Investigative Team proceedings in which Sumner County Sheriff's Office participated and the detective assigned to the DCS cases, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office investigation into Sebastian's disappearance was inadequate, negligent, and ultimately abandoned. The Sheriff's Office failed to secure the scene, failed to verify the stepfather's alibi, failed to investigate why surveillance cameras at the home were not working. See right there? Now, I remember them literally telling us that there were none. Okay? And I was like, that's weird. She works for Brinks. Why doesn't she have cameras? That's crazy. So him saying this threw me for a loop. Him saying this threw me for a loop. I was under the impression there were none. So I guess I'm going to have to contact Steve Fisher on Twitter. I'll send him a message, because I used to have his number, but I think he changed his number, and we haven't talked since there was like relevant stuff to talk about, like via text for Kylie Rodney. So the number I have for him is old. So I'll message him on Twitter and ask him about security cameras, because he was hired by the Proudfoots. So he's been to that house several times. He's been all over the place. See, I don't know, bro. That's what I'm saying. They literally said in the very beginning there were none. Not that they were not working, that there were none. Were none. So saying this now and here is different to me. See, I've never heard that before. See, that part I know. This part, this is the part that I'm understanding, that for their own security after the fact, because Bullhorn Betty kept driving around and all the other stuff they kept saying, all the other things apparently, and with the fact that somebody apparently came and, you know, took Sebastian, which is what they were trying to, I guess, say. They decided to put cameras up after the fact. So then how come in the beginning they came out and said that they didn't have cameras at all? Do you have that posted on your channel where he said that? Because I know, like, this is Julia. This is the K9 handler that was up there quite a bit and spoke to them for quite a few months. I pressed the wrong button. Hold on. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was very strange and threw me for a freaking hella loop. I think I even did a video like specifically on that. Like, I'm sorry. Okay, let me see. I'm going to have to go back through her interviews because it was stated by them that they did not have cameras at that house in the very beginning of this. So that's interesting. So I remember, yeah, I'd like to hear it because I remember saying, like, that's really strange because they have an autistic child, and people with autistic children usually just automatically know that you've got to be extra secure. And if you work for Brinks, then it definitely would make more sense that you would have a security system because you'd be able to afford it. So why don't you have it? I remember talking about that. Okay, I just agreed with you. See, the upgraded thing is new to me. The upgraded thing is new to me. And see, yeah, there was a neighbor that said something about how he had found Sebastian underneath one of his vehicles one time. So this statement just threw me for a loop. I'm going to have to go back and find the interview. I mean, it could have been either something said from one of the Proudfoots, or it could have been something that was said by like maybe it was like a news person, and maybe they just didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I don't know. But as far as I understood, they had no cameras at all at the time. It was really questionable. Threw me for a loop. We talked about it quite a bit. It made no sense to me for all the reasons I've already mentioned. And I was under the impression they got cameras after Sebastian went missing because of all of the attention the case was getting and everyone that kept coming around and all the other crazy shit. That's how I remember this going down. Okay. That's how I remember that going down. So this right here definitely, like I said, threw me back about not working, not present. That's wild. Okay. Scaled back the search after approximately 1 week, assigned only a single detective to the case, stopped communicating with Sebastian's father, Seth, approximately 18 months ago, and has held no press conferences since March of 2024. And the jurisdiction stuff I don't really care about. because they're going to do it wherever they're supposed to do it anyway. Okay. Factual allegations. Sebastian's history of and vulnerability were known to law enforcement. Sebastian was 15 years old at the time of his disappearance. Sebastian was a profoundly vulnerable child requiring a highest level of investigative urgency. Sebastian was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, severe combined type ADHD, and 6q27 chromosome deletion syndrome. He had an individualized education plan, or an IEP, and a Section 504 plan requiring his school to provide him with accommodations because he was a student with disabilities. Not just that, but 504 plans and IEP plans come with a lot of parent-teacher meetings, a lot of plan updates with the parents having to be involved. So this definitely would be something that Katie would have had to have gone in for. I don't know if Seth was involved in that, but I do know there was also something going on about taking him out of school and putting him in some sort of homeschooling type situation, or he was already in a homeschooling type situation, and something with school was going to change soon because he was supposed to go live with Seth. And then apparently he wasn't going to go live with Seth. There was all kinds of back and forth information with all of that too. Both sides were very argumentative, but hardly ever with each other personally. All the arguments were always done like on live streams. Like Katie didn't talk, never has really talked a lot. She's maybe talked like, what, 3 times? Maybe. Mainstream 3 times. I don't think she's ever talked. Has she ever talked to a YouTube source or anything? I don't think she has. But Chris Proudfoot would go on to, whoever was talking about it, he would do his absolute best to jump up on the stream. And he would just argue and talk all kinds of shit about Seth and Tony and all the people on that side. And then a couple hours later or the next day, here would come Seth and Tony, and they go and jump on whatever podcast was talking about it and get up on their live and do their argument retort about everything that Chris Proudfoot said the night before. And it was just... It was very 8th grade. Yeah, he was going to be going to live with Seth, but they were going to be doing homeschooling, and Sebastian wasn't for the homeschooling. Yeah, something like that. There was some changes happening. Supposed to be going on. Yeah. I remember that being like one of the things that with the changes that might be happening, could he be like not wanting these changes to happen? And it could be one of the reasons why he just said, F it, I'm running away. Because if I run away, they can't make me do or go or whatever. You know what I mean? Kids think all kind of stuff. So that's one of the things that I remember thinking back then might have been a reason why he decided to take off the way that he did. If, you know, he took off the way that he did. Sebastian was in the behavioral program at his school, received therapy 3 times per week through Mental Health Cooperative, was on Concerta, a medication, saw a neurologist at Vanderbilt, and was scheduled to begin ABA therapy at the time of his disappearance. His therapist reported that as a consequence of prior SA, Sebastian was aggressive and suffered frequent bathroom accidents. Law enforcement reported that Sebastian had some... Oh. Is this true? That Sebastian had homicidal thoughts? That's a big statement. Oh, wow. That's a big statement. Now, that situation I told you guys about a second ago with the hose, it apparently had something to do with a mattress being peed on, basically, and him being outside, and that's the whole hose situation, the water hose situation I was telling you about a second ago. Yeah, this is a wild statement. Like, we know that he was seeing a therapist for something that happened to him when he was a lot younger. Again, something that Seth came out and talked about. We know that this was something that was a big topic of discussion because of the daughter possibly moving in to the Proudfoot home, or at least for the whole summer, or something with her in that situation. This right here is a wild statement. Julia, do you ever remember seeing this before? Was there ever any talk at all from Seth? God, there's that stupid triangle. Was there ever any talk at all from Seth about seeing a report that said that Sebastian had homicidal thoughts? Like, that's wild. Well, we don't know if it's rumors never proven, Big T, because if he's saying that law enforcement reported it, then I'm going to assume that it's literally in a report, yeah? I mean, this is in a lawsuit, so I'm hoping that he's not going to be going off dumb and saying something like that without having an actual report, you know? Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, whatever you want to think, I don't really honestly like care. She's the one in chat that actually had like actual personal face-to-face with these people, so that's cool. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow when we do the entire review as a late night Saturday Night Live. And it's a 3.5 hour long interview, broski, so you already know to be here for a long time. You already know it. Gonna be for a long time. See, that's also something that I pretty much had said in the beginning, was that I didn't really know what we could really trust, because if none of those neighbors actually called it in to CPS, then I don't understand, like, where's the reports for that? How come there wasn't more happening? Because the CPS stuff that we heard about, there was like something at school with like a belt, and there's like a stomach thing. It had nothing at all to do with the water hose at all. And I know that people just sometimes will just make shit up. I mean, we had it in the Idaho case. I really wish that there was more like physical reports out on this case, because it would help. It would help us. It would help a whole lot if we had like the physical reports, because then like all the petty arguing about who knows more, you know, than anything else is crazy. I know who she is. I don't know you. I've never seen your name before. I've never seen your name before either. I know who she is. I know who she is. I don't have any skin in the game when it comes to the animosity or whatever the argument is. This isn't about y'all's whatever the fuck. Okay. This is about this lawsuit and what's going on with Sebastian. See, this is like a glaring example of everything that I was just talking about. Instead of just being in here to talk about the case, there's people in here talking shit about other people that are in here, and just because they can't help themselves. Just because they can't help themselves. This is not about anybody in this chat. It's not even you. That's the thing. Like, they're in here trying to say that you're not credible, but they're the ones in here being fucking shitheads. See, exactly. Julia never does that. She comes in here all the time, no matter what case I'm talking about, and she's respectful. She's nice. She never talks shit. Never, ever. Like, I've never had an issue with her. Whatever y'all's problems are y'all's problems. No, you're here to be an asshole. Because you're instantly like, I think I know more than her. Well, if you're going to come in here acting like a punk, then I don't really care. Like, there you go. That's my point. What's happening right now is literally everything that I've been saying about why we stopped talking about Sebastian. You see what's happening? And it's not because of somebody who is always here. She has been here for years, okay? Absolute years. This is happening with new people because of the subject that are just now coming in here. And I've watched it all. I've read the RICO, whatever the frick you want to call it. I've read the freaking lawsuit stuff. I've seen every little thing that's been going on Twitter. I'm not a novice to the situation. And this isn't about whose side is what. This is about what's going on with this case, with this child. And if the only reason you're going to come in here is to argue about who's right about some bullshit when what's happening and what's being read ain't got nothing to do with you, what the hell are you in here for? Might not be barely anybody in here the way there normally is for Idaho, but trust me when I tell you, you can leave and I won't cry about it. Your intentions are obvious. Okay, let's get back to the point. See what I mean? Every time I told y'all, this case is worse than Idaho. It's trash magnets. collects all the flies. Ugh. Poor kid. Sebastian deserves so much better than this dumb shit, bro. God damn. So much better than this dumb shit. My God. Anyway, I'm assuming since he's saying in here law enforcement reported that Sebastian had homicidal thoughts, that he does have some sort of police report with timing and an, the peer review, all the things. I'm assuming that there's an actual physical report that probably will be filed with the court, maybe was already filed with the court as an exhibit. I don't know. But that's a crazy statement. It's a very sad statement, but that's a crazy statement. Before Sebastian disappeared, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office had direct knowledge of and involvement in Sebastian's situation through its participation in the DCS Child Protective Investigative Team. The CPIT included the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, the Juvenile Court, Ashley's Place Child Advocacy Center, and Assistant District Attorney Jenny Smith. On November 3rd, 2022, and again in May 2023, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office participated in CPIT proceedings regarding Sebastian's DCS cases, and a detective was assigned to the case through CPIT. Through the CPIT proceedings and the DCS records, law enforcement knew or should have known the following about Sebastian. Sebastian had been essayed by a peer in California over a period of weeks, which included forced things that we're not going to read out here. Jesus, for frick's sakes. Sebastian was afraid of his stepfather, Chris, and fearful of being hurt if his stepfather found out about the SA. See, that's interesting, because to think that somebody would hurt you if they found out about something that happened to you in the past is not normally something that a kid just automatically thinks. So I just really would like to know where that was coming from, because that's also a scare tactic, you know what I mean? That a lot of people that are actually imposing the abuse on the child will use in order to keep them quiet. If you tell your stepdad, he's going to think that you're weak and he's going to bully you and he's going to beat you up. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where that goes for me. That's interesting, especially considering the fact that Chris Proudfoot didn't have shit to do with their lives at the time that Sebastian was going through that SA. That all happened before they ever even moved to Tennessee, before Katie ever met Chris. So that's interesting. That gives me a little bit of pause. Proudfoot admitted to DCS that he whacked Sebastian in the belly. Neighbors reported that Proudfoot hated the child and wanted the child to no longer exist. Sebastian's grandmother reported the stepfather often called Sebastian names and would degrade him. Sebastian's therapist reported he was aggressive, and law enforcement itself reported he had some homicidal thoughts. Again, I would really like to see this report right here, because for this to say that law enforcement said he had homicidal thoughts, what does that mean? Does that mean that they found some sort of online diary? Was he writing on a message board, maybe the way that we've seen Kohberger write in a message board whenever he was a teenager and was going through the visual snow stuff and all the other things that we've read him talk about? Because this isn't coming from a therapist thinking that Sebastian had homicidal thoughts. This is coming from law enforcement. So I'm wondering if that's through their investigation of them actually having digital footprint information, maybe things that he's been writing about online. The wording here is pretty important. I would really like to read that report. DCS determined Sebastian was at serious risk or imminent risk of removal from Proudfoot's home under, I'm not good with Roman numerals, title, whatever this one is, candidacy program. And then there's a footnote and it says, this program is also known as the Family First Prevention Services Act. FFPSA provides funding for time-limited prevention services, including mental health, substance A, and in-home parent skill-based programs for children who are candidates for foster home and their parents and caregiving kin. Okay. Sebastian had multiple diagnosed disabilities, including autism, ADHD, and a chromosomal deletion. And Sebastian had never left the home alone before, but that's not true. See, that's not true. They already said that he had been found underneath someone's car before. Now, the guy might not be telling the truth, okay? You can take that too and say, you can't trust what he's saying if it wasn't reported, if it's not on camera. Okay, I don't know. But we don't know, honestly, if he was good at sneaking out, good at sneaking back in. You never know. We don't know how many times he might have actually been in and out that house that maybe people don't know about. A lot of kids, when they have sneaky tendencies and are good at it, will just do it a lot, and the parents never know. So who knows? 17. This information was critical context for any investigation into Sebastian's disappearance. It pointed directly at the household as the primary focus of investigation and at Proudfoot as a person of significant interest. The Sumner County Sheriff's failure to treat this information with appropriate urgency constitutes deliberate indifference. Sebastian's disappearance and the law enforcement's initial response. Well, Sumner County Sheriff's Office, very specifically, initial response. On February 26, 2024, Sebastian's mother, Katie Proudfoot, reported that Sebastian left the home on his own and his whereabouts were unknown, and that Sebastian has never left the home alone before. Given Sebastian's neurodivergence, his developmental disabilities, and the documented history of A in the home, this report should have triggered the most intensive investigative response possible. That's not wrong. If they already had a law enforcement report from prior to him going missing that showed that he had homicidal thoughts from something that happened previously, shouldn't that information have popped up in order for this to have been taken a lot more seriously than it would? You'd really think that if they had all that information already on file when they pulled him up, that would have been like the first thing that they started considering with how serious they had to take it. Like, that almost makes it like he could be a danger to society if he's actually out there running around, because he's been noted already in our law enforcement system to have homicidal thoughts. So we need to up this search because, yeah, he might be, in danger himself, but also a danger to the public. Like, that's what he's saying here, right? That they had this report before Sebastian went missing. Because if that's the case, then I feel like this could be a bigger issue. On or about February 27th, 2024, an Amber Alert was issued by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, or the TBI. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office initiated a search that, at the beginning, involved significant resources, including community volunteers and search teams. However, the initial response was marred by critical failures. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office failed to secure the Proudfoot home and allowed reporters and family members, including Sebastian's biological father, Seth Rogers, to enter the home before it was properly processed as a crime scene. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office failed to verify Proudfoot's alibi that he was approximately 3 hours away at the time of Sebastian Rogers' disappearance. Now, I thought that they were actually able to verify. You might be able to hear my son. He's playing his video game. I thought they were actually able to verify that Chris Proudfoot was at the location where he had his RV camper thingy where he stayed when he was working. I thought that they had that. Or are they saying that because they can't prove that he wasn't able to get out a way that wasn't on camera at the gate, I guess? Yeah, the back and forth with medications is definitely a big deal. That's very true. See, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I always thought. That's why people would get so aggravated with me, because I'm like, guys, they said that they verified he was there. Like, we really can't keep going off of these things unless there's something, concrete to go off of that you can prove he snuck away. Do you have him on camera somewhere else? And there was none of that I ever saw ever come out at all. So this is a big thing to say too. This is a big thing to say too. See, I need to go back and find all the places where this was mentioned. All these little, all the places where highlighted things are things I need to go back and check for. So then it says, additionally, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office failed to investigate why the surveillance cameras at the Proudfoot home were reportedly not working on the day of Sebastian's disappearance. Yeah, this is still just he's going to need to clarify some more. The fact that the cameras were offline and that there was no investigation as to why and when the cameras were not functioning should have been a significant cause of suspicion and point of thorough investigation, because upon information and belief, Katie Proudfoot installs and operates security cameras for a living. Yeah, that's why it was odd when they first said that there wasn't any cameras. Because she could have gotten them like, you know, hella cheap. I need to fix my camera angle because I need to have this like up higher and it makes everything up in the camera now, but that's fine. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Sumner County Sheriff's Office abandonment of the investigation. After approximately 1 week, the Sheriff's Office scaled back its physical search for Sebastian and shifted it to what it characterized as the investigative side. Only one detective, Detective Brandon Carter, was assigned to the case. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office held a singular press conference in or around April 3rd, 2024. No public dates were provided. No reward was offered. No additional resources were deployed. Law enforcement stopped searching for Sebastian. Rogers attempted to stay in contact with Carter and to provide information from the public, including tips he received through his own outreach efforts. Carter failed to follow up on the tips Rogers provided. There was a lot of information that was coming in way of, well, technically, I guess what both sides were doing. Because again, the Proudfoots had hired SF Investigates, and Sebastian Rogers went around hiring, you know, other people, PIs. There was one named Chloe that he hired in the very beginning. And the way that I understood that situation to go down is that he didn't really want her doing things correctly. Is I guess the best way I could put it. There were a lot of shortcuts and things that weren't technically ethical that she wasn't okay with. And he didn't like that she wasn't okay with it. So he decided to not work with her anymore because she was ethical, is how I remember that situation going down. If I, you know, to be as vague as possible about the details, that's how I remember it happening. But both sides had a lot of information coming in. And now for him to just say that Sumner County wasn't really doing anything in way of the tips that they were turning in, I'm pretty positive they kind of like don't have a choice. How much effort they put into it, I don't know. But I mean, all they have to do is write a singular report, you know, faking it. And that's basically, you know, good enough. So unless he can find proof like that, yeah, that part right there. She did everything for free, that part right there. But he had decided to stop working with her because there were things that he wanted done that she just wasn't okay with. And, you know, that takes a lot, you know, that says a lot about somebody when they're just like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And, you know, yeah, all the things. Okay. Anyway, one such important tip that upon information and belief was not pursued came from one of the nurses that cared for Sebastian at his doctor's office. Upon information and belief, this nurse reported that on Friday, February 23rd, 2024, so just a few days before Sebastian went missing, Katie preemptively canceled Sebastian's doctor's appointment scheduled for the following week, just a day or so after his disappearance. Yeah, that's new. Let me read that again. The nurse reported that on Friday, so 3 days before Sebastian was reported missing, that Katie called and canceled his appointment that was supposed to be happening the day after he had actually been reported missing. So 3 days before he was reported missing, she called and canceled a doctor's appointment that was supposed to happen the day after he was reported missing. Yeah, that thing, right? Yeah. Yeah, he had a vetting issue. He didn't want her vetting people. I had a problem with that. They did. What was her name? What was her name? Oh my God, what was her freaking name? There was a lot of drama in all of that too, but there was receipts and there were billboards, blip billboards. I can't remember that girl's name. There were blip billboards that were put up like all over the place. All over the place. So you have heard this before, Tiff? See, this is new information to me. Maybe I wouldn't have been so unbiased if I would have known this little tidbit of information. Barbecue, Clue, and Duchess. Yeah. 26,000. Yeah, there was a lot of billboards. I'd even see him when I was driving back and forth to take Ariel for her shots for her medications in Houston. We'd have to drive like down all the highways. I remember seeing one. Cluminati. Yeah, I remember seeing those. Yes, in the new reports, not before. Okay, so this is new to you too. Yeah, that's big to me. I don't know. Not if unless you had access to his medical stuff. Did you ever talk to any of the doctors at his offices? I mean, they would lose their jobs if you say yes. Honestly, that's how that HIPAA stuff works. So I don't know. I wish that he. Well, I don't know. I don't know if he has attachments already in court for this, or if the attachments come later if this gets approved or goes further or whatever the hell's happening here. But he would have to show like proof of this. That's a big statement, bro. 3 days before reported missing, she calls to cancel an appointment that was supposed to take place the day after, which would have been the 27th. That's concerning. It is. I don't like that at all. Yeah, they got they raised a shit ton of money. I remember seeing billboard locations on a map that got put up and like all the little blips everywhere. There was a lot of billboards put up for him. Yeah. Yeah, I remember I think I donated through it might have been Cluminati's channel. I saw it at one time and I was like, "Damn, that's really awesome." You've never even heard that, even allegedly. Yeah. Especially if the appointment was supposed to be for the day after he actually gets reported missing. That's like you had a schedule that you were trying to keep to. Yeah, that's odd. I hope that he provides information on that because that's fishy as shit. I can't deny at all that if this is true, that this is fishy as shit, because obviously he was fine. Now, unless he had been sick and she was going to take him in because he was sick and then he was fine all of a sudden and wasn't sick, and so then there was no reason to take him in. Okay, because obviously he wasn't. She was taking him all over the place. She took him out to eat, like all these other things. But if this was like a routine appointment, then that's odd. I mean, all of it is odd regardless. The timing of this is odd regardless. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. The nurse stated that this was uncommon, you think? And in hindsight, concerning, as Sebastian was always present for his appointments, which were frequent and ongoing. Oh, okay, well, that answers my question. This was a regular-ass ongoing appointment. So how much you want to bet he had bruises or some shit on him? Why else would you cancel an appointment like that? And then this be the kind of shit that ended up happening. Like, if you go into a doctor and the doctor is going to be checking him out, like, what other reason would you not take him into something that you normally go to that is considered frequent and ongoing, unless there was something physical that you didn't want them to look at and see? I don't like that. It would definitely prove me premeditation, that's for sure. You have. And I mean, I've always had questions for Katie. She was the last person to be with him before apparently all this shit went down. I mean, it's a statement from the nurse there. So I'm guessing that there's going to be a signed affidavit by this nurse that should be attached to this. What does RS mean? Yeah, there's going to have. Yeah, it's an alleged statement. He's going to have exhibits attached to this. And I'm assuming that like either she volunteered to when the police started talking to her, or, you know, nurses are mandatory reporters. Yeah, that's true. Well, some people do, and I always found it kind of stupid too. But I have seen people or been around people that have. Yeah, unless she did reschedule, but they're not saying that it was rescheduled. She's saying that it was just canceled. But wording does matter. So if we get the statement and it says otherwise, then that's going to make this look stupid, because this is supposed to be mirroring. This is basically supposed to be a summary of everything that they plan to submit during the court, like the way, because he wants this to go to a jury. So this is supposed to be, you know, I would expect that the nurse would be called to testify in front of the jury with a statement saying that, yeah, she called in on the Friday and canceled the appointment, and the appointment wasn't set for until the 27th, and, you know, whatever the appointment was for, like all that would have to be talked about. So I'm assuming that they have proof behind whatever that statement is, but you can only assume. We know how this all goes. Approximately 18 months before the date of this complaint, Carter suggested meeting with Rogers. Rogers agreed and proposed meeting the following week. This would be Seth. Carter never responded. That's the detective. No further communication from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office has been received by Rogers. The TBI also told Rogers they would call back, but never did. This 18-month communication blackout, during which a disabled child remained missing and unaccounted for, is itself evidence of deliberate indifference. Sebastian's case was not allocated the resources or attention it deserved. Sebastian was assigned one detective. Law enforcement held a single press conference. They made no request for FBI involvement, deployed no advanced forensics. Worse yet, law enforcement refused to accept leads from the public, much less to follow up on them. I don't know if you can say that, though. There's no way that they were just refusing all leads from the public. I think that they knew that they had to handle certain people's information a certain way because of things that were going on, but I still don't think that they just like completely disregarded every little bitty thing. That'd be highly unlikely that that was the case, much less follow up on them. And they completely abandoned all communication with Sebastian's father. Tennessee ranks 7th nationally in missing persons cases, with 991 active cases as of mid-2025 and 921 unresolved cases in the NamUs database as of January 2025. Well, it's been a year and a half since then, so why didn't you just give us updated information for July 2026? Because I'm sure it's worse than that now. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office failures are not isolated, but reflect systematic deficiencies in how Tennessee law enforcement handles missing persons cases. First cause of action, substantive due process, Fourth Amendment, deliberate indifference, and state-created danger against all defendants. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference all preceding paragraphs as those set forth herein. The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. In child welfare cases, the applicable standard for substantive due process liability under 42 U.S. Constitution 1983 is deliberate indifference. That is, whether the state actor knew of or disregarded a substantial risk of serious harm to the plaintiff. Under the state-created danger doctrine, a state actor may be held liable under 1983 when the state's affirmative actions create or increase the danger to an individual. Sebastian, as a missing child with documented disabilities and a known history of had a liberty interest in his personal security protected by the 14th Amendment. I'm trying to find a place to put my coffee cup that's not right in the camera. It can go over there. Rogers has a protected liberty interest in the care, custody, and companionship of his son. This claim is brought on behalf of Sebastian through his father and next friend, Rogers, which is Seth. The state-created danger doctrine requires that the state's own affirmative conduct created or increased a plaintiff's exposure to danger. Defendants' affirmative acts that created or increased the danger to Sebastian include A, knowing Sebastian's history of SA that had been reported to and investigated by the DCS office. B, knowing that Sebastian had a home life that DCS's own records show was marked by physical A, emotional degradation, and a stepfather whom neighbors reported hated the child and wanted the child to no longer be alive. And C, failing to take any actions. Defendants acting under color of state law were deliberately indifferent to Sebastian's disappearance. This deliberate indifference is evidenced by A, the failure to secure the scene, B, the failure to verify Proudfoot's alibi, C, the failure to investigate the non-functioning surveillance cameras, D, the assignment of only one detective, E, the cessation of press conferences after March 2025, F, the failure to follow up on tips, G, the 18-month communication blackout with Rogers, and H, the failure to deploy resources commiserate with the known risk factors. I wonder if maybe he's trying to file this to maybe get some discovery stuff. You think so? Because if he doesn't actually have information on whatever Chris Proudfoot's alibi is, because the police probably aren't going to just like tell him, probably. Maybe he's trying to file this so that they'll have to provide this to him. Because there'll have to be some sort of subpoena or something. Now, this is still crazy to me. I'm under the complete impression that there were none. I'd like to hear if Chris Proudfoot did say something different. I just know that the way I lived this story was that there were none. And that's just crazy. It's super crazy. Defendants knew or should have known of the extraordinary risk factors in this case through their participation in the CPIT proceedings, the DCS records, and the circumstances of Sebastian's disappearance. Their failure to act with urgency in light of these known risks constitute conduct that shocks the conscious. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's deliberate indifference and affirmative acts creating danger, Sebastian remains a highly at-risk missing youth. And never mind again, the homicidal thoughts is scary. Because they're not mentioning that he's, a danger to other people too. And I would have never thought that. I'd never have thought that until reading that in this document. That's crazy. A crazy statement. Plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages for the continuing deprivation of Sebastian's liberty and Rogers' familial association, punitive damages against the individual defendants for conduct evidencing reckless or callous indifference to federally protective rights, injunctive relief directing the Sumner County Sheriff's Office to immediately reopen and actively prosecute the investigation with adequate resources and attorney's fees and costs pursuant to 42 United States Constitution 1988. What do you mean reopen, though? Is this closed? I've never once ever seen anything say that the case was closed. So to say reopen, that's interesting. To say reopen, that's interesting. Oh, hey, Shadow Ghost, thank you for the 10. Earlier, if you get a chance to get your lives, just want to stop by and say I appreciate you, especially in regarding to the Idaho 4 case. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, I just needed a break from Idaho tonight. I need a break after after Cyray's little interview. We're going to be reviewing the entire thing all over again tomorrow night. But I needed a break from Idaho tonight. And this is important. Like, everything in this is hella important. I've been wanting to talk about this case for a while. Because there's been things going on. But it just always brings a bunch of just chaos. I just hope, again, that the statements that are being made in this have backing. I would really hope that, considering that he wants a jury to hear everything, that this nurse is willing to come out and testify, that there's medical records and call logs that show that the appointments were canceled, because it seems like that would have been the case. Either she would have had to have gone online and done it through a portal, or she would have had to have called and canceled it on the phone, and there will be backing to all of that. I'm also really hoping that there's a report somewhere that says these things about Sebastian having homicidal thoughts literally written by law enforcement, because to come out here and say that about your kid in a lawsuit, I would sure hope that you have the police report to say, that that's a thing. Do I think he's frivolously filing it with nothing to attach to it? No. I think things have been going on for a super long time. And again, he doesn't have Tony Mathis anymore, which is really sad, because look how really ridiculously sad that he looks. He looks like he hasn't slept in forever. He looks like he is grieving everything. So maybe this will bring some discovery. Maybe this will give some answers. Maybe this will point something in another direction. I just find it really strange that they would have something that says that he has homicidal thoughts, and they would not pursue this more as, he could be a danger to the people around him, maybe approach with caution type thing. That's crazy considering the search parties that were out there. So again, I hope he has backing for that, because that's a really strong statement to make against your own kid. Well, thank you for being in here, Big T. Thank you for the 2. I appreciate that. And like I said, I'm going to try to find the one that was filed against the DCS office itself. And I have a feeling a lot of it's going to be the same. But I also have a feeling that if it is more detailed because of who it is being filed against, there's going to probably be a lot more details in there that I really just don't want to have just all willy-nilly out there. The description of the essay that's already in here that we've seen already, I feel like is unnecessary. I don't feel like the type and the body part description of all of that, I don't feel like any of that's necessary. I don't know why the hell it's in here. I think Seth did that in poor taste. I don't think that was very necessary for what's happening. But yeah, I'd still like to see what the lawsuit has to say. Okay. Now, this is the second cause of action against defendant Sumner County. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference all preceding paragraphs as though set forth herein. Pursuant to the United States Supreme Court's decision in Monell versus the Department of Social Services from 1978, a plaintiff can hold a municipal or local government entity liable for constitutional violations caused by its policies, customs, or practices. Upon information and belief, Sumner County, through the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, maintained official policies, customs, and practices that were the moving force behind the constitutional violations, including a custom of under-resourcing missing persons investigations, B, a policy or practice of failing to maintain communications with families of missing persons, C, a custom of failing to coordinate with DCS and other agencies regarding known risk factors, and D, a practice of effectively abandoning investigations without resolution. These policies and customs reflect deliberate choices by Sumner County's final policymaker, Defendant Craddock, regarding the allocation of investigative resources, the prioritization of missing persons cases, the scale of the search, the assignment of personnel, and the cessation of family communication are attributable to Sumner County as official policy. Sumner County's policies, customs, and practices were the moving force behind the constitutional violations described herein. As a direct and proximate result of Sumner County's deliberate policies, customs, or practices, Sebastian remains a highly at-risk missing youth. Plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages for the continuing deprivation of Sebastian's liberty and Rogers' familial association. That's the same thing as before, wanting the court costs and stuff. Okay. So this is a third cause. I'm going to try not to repeat all of the little technicals and just get to the specifics for each agency or each cause. So this one is failure to train and supervise, and it goes against Sumner County and Sheriff Craddock. It says the inaccuracy in training must be closely related to and the actual cause of the ultimate constitutional injury. As set forth herein, defendants conduct conduct violated Sebastian's constitutionally protected liberty interest in personal security under the 14th Amendment and Rogers' protected liberty interest in the care, custody, and companionship of his son. Upon information and belief, Sumner County and Sheriff Craddock failed to provide Sumner County Sheriff Office officers and detectives with adequate training in this right here is what I would really expect to be seeing from the damn consolvases. Okay. This right here saying that training sucked. You didn't know what the shit you were doing. What the hell is going on here? Why is this case a piece of shit? This is what the families right here should be filing in the Idaho case. The investigation of murdered persons, okay, if you put it in right here, we're going to read it correctly, but you guys are going to understand as I'm reading, okay? This is what we should be seeing. Not against the damn school that Brian went to. We should be seeing this from all of the families in the Idaho student murder case for Idaho. This right here. The investigation of missing persons cases involving disabled or neurodivergent children. For Idaho, insert whatever you want right here. B, the assessment and prioritization of cases presenting known A risk factors, including prior DCS involvement. Include whatever you want. You know what I'm getting to. We should be seeing there being some sort of responsibility on the poor investigation, the lack of give a shit, the lack of protocol being followed, the lack of accountability when it comes to the police in the Idaho 4 case. We should be seeing something like this coming from the families. And it's really disappointing that we didn't see them move the right ways. And at least for a lot of people's opinion. Some people are okay with the lawsuit with the Idaho case with WSU. And I'm okay with it because I want hopefully some discovery to come from something. But in my opinion, you'd really think that the first thing that they would think of was to go after Moscow, was to go after Latah County, find some way to go after these law enforcement agencies that contaminated everything, that had chain of custody issues, that wrote that the damn knife sheath was on the floor, and then there's all these discrepancies everywhere and lost transcripts and lost interviews. Like, they should really care about how shit this was. They really should care about how shit this was. It's really shocking to me. It's just so shocking to me. Okay, anyway. C, the identification and preservation of crime scenes in the context of missing children investigations. D, the proper verification of alibi information from the individuals in the missing child's household. E, coordination of other agencies, including DCS, the TBI, and the FBI, in cases involving high-risk missing children. F, the deployment and maintenance of investigative... Why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me? Investigative resources sufficient for the duration of an unresolved missing persons case. And G, the last one, maintaining required communication with the families of missing persons throughout the investigation. Yeah, that's something else with the Idaho case. As much as I don't like the consolvaces, I don't think that it was very fair that the families were being left just in the dust with everything. And the sad part is that seems to be a common situation. And again, I understand police officers not wanting to tell family members every little detail about what's going on because it's emotional, it's stressful, it takes away from the time that they have to actually work on the investigation, and they don't want pertinent things that could actually lead to an answer, to an arrest, to the case being solved. They don't want to give away information that could jeopardize that. But to just not say anything, to just ignore questions, to just literally say nothing, like, that's so not fair. Like, you're literally causing more issues when you decide that silence is your answer. There's got to be a middle somewhere, because this is way too common. The families, they get more emotional. They can't think clearly because their minds are all over the place because no one's giving them any information, and they're having to fill in the dots themselves. Some of them don't do the insane things that the consolvases did, like make up information and blah, 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 whatever. But there was a lot of made up bullshit in this case too. There was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of things that were created out of who knows what and thrown the other way. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that here too. So I don't know if that would have, I don't know if more communication with the families or with Seth himself, I don't know if that would have lessened any of the clownery that happened here. It might have. It might have. But I guess we'll never know because it's too late to know. You know? The need for such training was obvious. Law enforcement officers investigating the disappearance of a disabled minor from a home marked by documented physical and SA. Well, see, that's not a fair statement. Because the stuff that happened to Sebastian in this realm of things happened before Katie and Chris ever met. So to say that this is a home marked by documented this happening, this makes it seem as if the SA was happening inside of that house, and that's not true. Now, this part, there's a lot of allegation and there's a lot of rumor and speculation for and cases where they had workers come out and speak to them. But as for SA and having it labeled as marked in that house, that's not a fair statement. Active DCS involvement in a household member identified by neighbors as harboring lethal animosity towards the child are placed squarely in a situation where the absence of specialized training in vulnerable victim investigations will predictably result in constitutional harm. The failure to prepare officers for precisely this scenario, one that the Sumner County Sheriff's Office had constructive, if not actual, knowledge was likely to arise, given Sumner County Sheriff's own participation in the CPIT proceedings concerning Sebastian, constitutes deliberate indifference. Craddock, as the final policymaker for the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, is individually liable for his failure to supervise Sumner County Sheriff's Office personnel, including Carter, in the investigation of Sebastian's disappearance. Craddock knew or should have known that assigning a single detective to a high-risk missing child investigation and allowing that investigation to go dormant for over 18 months without intervention constituted a supervisory failure of constitutional dimension. His deliberate choice to retain that approach and his failure to intervene as the investigation stagnated and the communication with the child's family was abandoned reflects the conscious disregard of a known risk required to establish supervisory liability. Had Sumner County Sheriff's Office personnel been trained in vulnerable victim investigation protocols, Carter been supervised, and the Sumner County Sheriff's Office been equipped with proper procedures for high-risk missing persons cases, the investigative failures cataloged herein would not have occurred. These omissions are not incidental. They are the foreseeable and predictable product of a department that sent its detective into a constitutionally sensitive investigation without the tools to conduct it. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's failure to train and supervise, Sebastian remains a highly at-risk missing child, and Rogers has been deprived of his constitutionally protected relationship with his son. Plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages, and then there's that same thing again. Okay. Then we have the fourth cause, which is the violation of Tennessee's victim rights, and this is going against all defendants. The Tennessee Constitution and the Tennessee Victims' Rights statutes guarantee crime victims and their families the right to be informed about the status of investigations and to be treated with dignity and respect. Defendant violated Rogers' rights under these provisions in the following specific respects. A, failing to treat Rogers with the dignity and respect required by TCA 4038-102 by abandoning all communication for approximately 18 months. B, failing to supply Rogers with information and updates regarding the investigation as required by TCA. C, failing to inform Rogers of the investigation's status, investigative developments, or the identity of personnel responsible for the investigation in violation of TSA 4038-107 and 4038-113. D, failing to respond to Rogers' attempt to provide investigative tips and leads, effectively excluding him from participation in the effort to locate his son. And E, failing to hold any public communications regarding the investigation after April 2024, leaving Rogers and the public without any information about Sebastian's case for more than 2 years. As a direct result of defendants' violations of Tennessee's victim rights protections, Rogers has been denied information critical to his son's safety and well-being, has been excluded from the investigative process to which he is entitled by constitutional and statutory right, and has suffered severe and ongoing emotional distress from the enforced ignorance of whether his son is alive or dead. Plaintiffs seek all appropriate relief, all the things from before. Fifth cause of action, negligence and eek. I don't want that to fall. Eek, I don't want that to fall. Eek. I gotta clean my room. I got stuff everywhere. Okay. Negligence and gross negligence against all the defendants listed. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference all preceding paragraphs as though set forth herein. Defendant owed a duty of care to Sebastian and Rogers once they undertook to investigate Sebastian's disappearance to act as a reasonably competent law enforcement officer or agency would when faced with similar facts. The failures alleged herein are not policy-level discretionary choices, but operational breakdowns in the execution of an investigation that was already underway, failing to secure a scene, failing to verify an alibi, failing to follow up on tips, failing to maintain communication with the victim's family are ministerial operational acts, not protected discretionary functions. Once Sumner County Sheriff's Office undertook the investigation of Sebastian's disappearance, it assumed a duty of reasonable care in conducting that investigation. Tennessee courts recognize that a duty of care arises when a defendant's conduct creates a foreseeable risk of harm to an identifiable plaintiff. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office had direct, documented knowledge of Sebastian's profound vulnerability, his disabilities, and the known danger in the Proudfoot household. A reasonably competent law enforcement agency, knowing what the Sumner County Sheriff's Office knew, would have preserved the crime scene, verify Proudfoot's, all the same things that he said before about just basically everything. Craddock and Carter's negligent acts and omissions cumulatively amount to willful, malicious, and grossly negligent conduct. Craddock and Carter's actions constitute a conscious indifference to the consequences when a reasonable person would have recognized that the conduct was likely to harm another. The conscious 18-month abandonment of communication with Rogers of a missing disabled child and the decision to allow the investigation to go dormant with no public updates and no follow-up on submitted leads arises to this standard. Defendants breached their duty through the acts and omissions described herein, which constituted gross negligence and a conscious disregard for Sebastian's safety and Seth's rights as a parent. As a direct and proximate result of defendants' negligence and gross negligence, Sebastian remains a missing at-risk child, and Rogers has suffered substantial ongoing harm, including the loss of his son's companionship and the severe emotional injury of not knowing whether Sebastian is alive or dead. Plaintiffs are entitled to compensatory damages from the governmental entity defendants to the extent permitted by the Tennessee Governmental Tort Liability Act, and to compensatory and punitive damages from the individual defendants in their individual capacities for their grossly negligent and willful failures. Here's the sixth act, which is against all defendants: intentional infliction of emotional distress. Plaintiffs incorporate by reference, same first sentence as all of them. Tennessee recognizes a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress where the plaintiff proves 1, the defendant's conduct was intentional and reckless; 2, the conduct was so outrageous that it is not tolerated by civilized society; and 3, the conduct resulted in serious mental injury to the plaintiff. The facts support a finding that defendant's conduct was reckless and intentional. Carter consciously ignored Rogers' agreed-upon meeting and then never contacted him again. Craddock, as the final policymaker with direct supervisory authority, made deliberate choices to allocate a single detective to the investigation, to hold only one press conference, and to permit the investigation to go dormant while a disabled child remained missing. These were not inadvertent omissions, but affirmative choices made with conscious disregard of their effect on Rogers. Though Rogers repeated contact attempts and the very nature of the circumstances, defendants were on notice that their conduct was causing severe and ongoing emotional harm. So they were told ahead of time, I guess given like a warning. that if they didn't start talking to him, that maybe this was going to end up coming, I guess. That's what it sounds like. Defendant's conduct meets and exceeds the outrageousness threshold. Defendants are law enforcement officials with exclusive authority over the only official investigation into Sebastian's disappearance. They're of that exclusive authority to effectively abandon a profoundly disabled missing child's case while maintaining a monopoly over the investigation that prevents Rogers from seeking redress elsewhere is outrageous. A parent who has been told by detectives they will meet with him, then stood up, then cut off from all contact for 18 months while his disabled son remains missing, is not merely experiencing the ordinary difficulties of life. The conduct alleged is beyond what any reasonable person in a civilized society should be required to endure from those entrusted with the duty to find his child. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's intentional or reckless outrageous conduct, Rogers has suffered serious mental injury that no reasonable person would be expected to endure. The prolonged, unresolved disappearance of his disabled teenage son, combined with the law enforcement agency responsibility for finding that son going completely silent for nearly 2 years. This is not the transient distress of any ordinary grievance. It is a sustained, open-ended mental anguish, including the inability to grieve, plan, or act, because the whereabouts and fate of his child remain unknown, and the agency that could answer that question has chosen silence. This cause of action is asserted against defendants Craddock and Carter in their individual capacities for their personal, intentional, or reckless, outrageous conduct as described herein. Punitive damages are sought against the individual defendants in their individual capacities. As a direct and proximate result of defendants' intentional and reckless, outrageous conduct, Rogers has suffered and continues to suffer severe emotional distress, entitling him to compensatory and punitive damages in amounts to be proven at trial. I mean, he does look bad. He looks like he's definitely not sleeping, super stressed, super depressed. Like he looks it, that's for sure. Seventh cause of action, negligent infliction of emotional distress. So I'm going to assume that the majority of this is all exactly the same then. Yeah. Yeah, agreeing to meet, not speaking, not giving him any information on anything. Yeah. This is all pretty much the same thing. Okay. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff respectfully requests that this court enter judgment in their favor and against defendants and award the following relief. Compensatory damage in an amount to be proven at trial, but not less than $10 million. The one against the DCS office is 15. Punitive damages against the individual defendants. Injunctive relief requiring the Sumner County Sheriff's Office to reopen active investigation of Sebastian's case with adequate resources, establish protocols for missing persons investigations, and implement mandatory communication requirements with victims' families. But again, I've never heard that the case is closed. So that wording is interesting. Attorney's fees and costs, pre-judgment and post-judgment interest, and such other and further relief as this court deems just and equitable. And the plaintiffs demand trial by jury. Which is why I said I'm hoping that with the things that he's claiming, he's got people that are willing to come and testify, that he has people that are willing to come and, or, submit some sort of affidavit of what an actual law enforcement report that mentions something, about Sebastian having homicidal thoughts. Like something like that would be good to have. I mean, that's a crazy statement to make if you don't have backing on it. So this is the last thing that we're going to see here. Now, there's been a lot of news reports on it. I've seen quite a few. These are the two I found to be, I guess, the ones with the most information from Seth. This is also the one that mentions the fact that they reached out to the Proudfoots and didn't get an answer. Let me see.
Millions.
Let me see what date. I think this was yesterday. Yeah, this was yesterday.
Watched.
Dog the bounty hunter is coming to look for.
Yeah, I don't care.
Sebastian, from the moment his son.
He, my son.
Been no arrest, Rogers, but near wanted answers.
He deserves justice.
Now it looks like he just sort of like interviewed with a couple of different networks on the same day. The clip it plays at first had me confused the first time I watched it. I thought they were just regurgitating the other interview, but then there's pieces of another person actually speaking to Seth.
What happened to 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers? But nearly 2.5 years later, there have been no arrests, no suspects, and no sight of Sebastian.
I need my son home.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I need my son home.
I think it's
From the moment his son went missing, Sebastian's father, Seth Rogers, prayed.
It was like God gave me a purpose in life.
Your son was your purpose.
This was before, but then
He still
another
is.
guy pops up
I
in a
just gotta
second.
find him.
Sebastian disappeared during the overnight hours of February 26, 2024, from the Hendersonville home he shared with his mother, Katie Proudfoot, and her husband, Chris Proudfoot.
He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
At first, Seth says he trusted the investigation, but the idea Sebastian just walked from home alone with no shoes on and without his phone never made sense.
People don't just vanish into thin air.
No, they don't. No matter how I look at it, I just cannot wrap my head around my son walking out of that house.
Sebastian has autism, ADHD, and a rare
Okay, I didn't want to keep listening to the same pieces of interview. This is where he starts speaking to the new person.
centers on the home itself. The lawsuit claims investigators never secured the Proudfoot home as a potential crime scene, allowing reporters and family members inside before it was fully processed.
That alone from the jump
Maybe I was wrong.
started
It was
this
something else.
on a faulty road.
But the
that was
lawsuit
another
says
interview.
there was something else investigators should have been asking about: home security cameras, because according to the suit, they weren't working the day Sebastian disappeared.
Those are the ones that were put on after. Like, see, this is like so confusing because I'm telling you, because I even wondered, like, the lights above the garage. Okay, let me pull up the house. The lights above the garage were not on either suddenly. That was another thing that was a big deal because apparently the garage lights were always on, but then all of a sudden that night the garage lights were not on. And I was like, okay, is there a camera right there? Because a lot of outdoor lights have cameras. And as far as I was understanding from the report that was written by SF Investigates and everything that the damn police have already told us, it was other neighbors' floodlights and other neighbors' ring cameras that they were getting information from. So it's still just like super crazy that's like something that they're trying to say is going on here. Let me see what date this was from. Okay, hold on. We might have to watch somebody I don't like video to see the house. Get to the point, bro. No, he don't stop far enough. See, here's a picture from March 23rd, 2024. I think this might have been after they got the cameras put on. This whole thing with the cameras is throwing me for a freaking loop, bro. It really is. Right, and it wasn't them. That's why this is crazy. And like, I know that these news people know that. Seth is going to have to like explain what, I mean, I know that it's weird. Okay. I said it was odd because she worked for Brinks. It'd be so freaking cheap for her to have a camera system out there. Like it's weird she didn't. But he's going to have to explain, like, if he thinks that there was like an indoor camera, that wasn't on or something like that? Because this is just so like Mandela effect.
Disappeared. Do you have evidence that those security cameras at the home were offline and investigators didn't determine why?
I just know that they have not been able to get any footage from those cameras. I don't know.
So is he, hold on, who, okay, so I was wrong about what this was. I thought that that was Seth interviewing with another guy. So is this a detective that's actually actively working the case, answering this damn question? And verifying cameras exist, but that they can't just get information off of them? We're going to have to go back. Hold on.
Communications blackout. Is that what it feels like, a blackout?
Yeah. It says a lot when they won't speak to me. To me, it says that they know that they screwed the pooch.
Then the lawsuit asks another question. If the investigation lost steam in the early
That's
days,
the attorney? Okay,
what
so
happened
then
during those
he
first
might not
critical
even know.
hours? Because the complaint claims that's where some of its most serious allegations
I wonder if
begin.
they'd answer me.
And your lawsuit says this investigation, its focus was critically marred from the beginning.
It was dead on arrival. This looks to me like an amateur investigation.
That's Seth Rogers' attorney, Darren Ritchie. The first allegation centers on the home itself. The lawsuit claims investigators never secured the Proudfoot home as a potential crime scene, allowing reporters and family members inside before it was fully processed.
Yeah, there should have been someone at the door.
That alone from the jump started this on a faulty road.
But the lawsuit says there was something else investigators should have been asking about: home security cameras, because according to the suit, they weren't working the day Sebastian disappeared. Do you have evidence that those security cameras at the home were offline and investigators didn't determine why?
I just know that they have not been able to get any footage from those cameras. I don't know why, but I know that that would have been the first key element of any evidence to collect in this case.
The lawsuit argues that should have raised immediate questions because Katie Proudfoot installs and services security cameras for a living. But the suit claims the missed opportunities didn't end there. It also alleges investigators never verified Chris Proudfoot's alibi that he was 3 hours away when
See, and we
Sebastian
heard the opposite.
disappeared.
Okay, so yeah. So let's just go ahead and keep track now. That's thing number 2 that publicly is different in the lawsuit than what we've actually heard. So I remember hearing what we've already discussed about the cameras, now with Chris Proudfoot, that they verified that he was at the little site where he had his RV with his truck and he did not leave. That there was no evidence that he walked out and got into another vehicle, that there was literally no proof whatsoever that he was anywhere other than where he said he was. So him again saying this is the actual opposite. I wonder if I emailed them if they would answer me. I've never contacted them for anything.
What evidence says Chris Proudfoot's alibi wasn't verified?
We have looked at the police reports on this matter, and we do not see where they were able to verify his alibi. They may say that the alibi is safe and is accurate, but I don't see the steps that they took to get there.
The complaint also describes an alleged tip from a nurse at Sebastian's doctor's office who claimed Katie...
Look, I mean, I don't know if you're here for the Idaho case, Big T, but in the Idaho student murder case, the families have now filed a lawsuit against WSU, which is where Brian Kohberger was a TA at the time all the stuff was going on. The amount of incorrect information in that lawsuit after the plea and all of the truth started coming out and the state's evidence came out is astonishing. And it is not the same attorney that the family, well, the Consalvis family had during the case to like speak for them that really didn't speak for them because they just talked and did whatever they wanted anyway. These are 2 different firms, larger firms from different places that filed this together. And there are things in there that the prosecutor stood up at the plea change and demanded that we understand for the 15th time that were not true in this case. And they are being used as pieces of evidence in the lawsuit, the civil suit against the school. So while you would assume, because that was my argument too, that when these damn things are filed, that there would be incorrect and backed up information into them, apparently civil suits are you can just do whatever the hell you want. Apparently, I don't know what the hell's going on, but we literally just saw this. Yes, you see my poo cup. This was at a Goodwill, because when Dad's here, we go like Goodwill hopping all the time. There's like several around us for like an hour, like radius, and this was at a Goodwill for like $2, and it says "Oh shit." You see it? Oh shit! Ah. Yes, I love it. Yeah, about stalking, and also they have the kitchen window and the handprints and the face print on the kitchen window in the back as part of him like looking into the window in the kitchen, like all kinds of false bullshit, bro. All kinds of false bullshit in that WSU lawsuit. So yeah, I agree. I don't understand why they're allowed to put false information, proven false information in lawsuits. You'd think that there would be some sort of rule for that, you know?
Proudfoot canceled an appointment just 8 hours.
Okay, thing number 3, that's hella new information. And I would really hope again that they have a nurse and medical records and call logs to prove that there was an appointment canceled, because that is premeditation. That is definitely a big, huge, glaring red flag that if it's true, I just don't see how the police could possibly ignore that. That's crazy.
Away when Sebastian disappeared.
What evidence says Chris Proudfoot's alibi wasn't verified?
We have looked at the police reports on this matter, and we do not see where they were able to verify his alibi. They may say that the alibi is safe and is accurate, but I don't see the steps that they took to get there.
The complaint also describes an alleged tip from a nurse at Sebastian's doctor's office who claimed Katie Proudfoot canceled
or like if they needed his medical records for the investigation, and the medical records came out and it shows that there was an appointment for February 27th that was canceled the Friday before on the 23rd, it would show up in the medical history, because if they're going in to get the medical records with a warrant, then they would also most likely also want the office logs. So that would be part of the office logs.
Appointment just 3 days before Sebastian vanished. The suit claims that lead was never adequately pursued. And it further alleges the sheriff's office was already part of a child protective team looking into abuse allegations involving Sebastian.
See, and that's where it's crazy, because if that's true, that the police were already involved because of the Child Protective Services investigation, and there's really a law enforcement report out there connected with Sebastian's name on it that says that he has homicidal thoughts, I am really concerned that they did not push this as more of like a public alert, because you've got a teenager out there that has homicidal tendencies according to a law enforcement report, and you don't know where the hell he is. Like that. It's just odd if that's true, the way that the case was handled with such like shh about everything, unless they were trying to keep it quiet because they knew they should have acted before in some way, shape, or form ahead of time.
After Chris Proudfoot allegedly struck him in the stomach.
You're suing the sheriff's office, but the complaint at some point sounds like the finger's being pointed at the Proudfoots. Who are you after here?
I am going after the sheriff's department right now.
We also reached out to the Proudfoots.
Right here.
They declined our interview request, but they have never been arrested, never been named suspects, and never been identified as persons of interest in Sebastian's disappearance. And they have repeatedly told WSMV4 they had nothing to do with Sebastian's disappearance.
Yeah.
How bad does that hurt when people start accusing
Okay, this was the last time she spoke.
It hurts. It hurts a lot.
For Katie Proudfoot, the pain is being accused. For Seth Rogers, the pain.
That wasn't too long ago. That was 5 months ago. Maybe I didn't watch all of that interview. I'll have to go back and rewatch it.
Is not knowing if everything that should have been done to find Sebastian was.
I want to hug my son. I want to feel his physical presence. I don't want to close my eyes and have these nightmares anymore.
We asked the Sumner County Sheriff's Office for an interview. We haven't heard back. And tonight,
There is more. Rogers also
Yeah.
filed a second federal lawsuit,
$15
this
million
one
one.
targeting the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. The suit claims DCS had 2 cases of alleged abuse involving Sebastian, one of them inside the Hendersonville home where he lived, but never notified his father, Seth Rogers.
We'll watch it.
Both of those cases were closed without Sebastian being removed from that home. But the lawsuit now asks whether that was a mistake and claims DCS failed Sebastian. We'll have more on that suit tomorrow night. For WSMV4,
So I'll listen to that when I'm cooking later. Or never mind, it's Fast Food Friday. We're going to order something. But I'll listen to it later and see what that one's about, and I'll try to find it so we can go over whatever the differences are. I mean, this is, again, a case that I had a lot of videos on this case out there. It just got to where it was so out of hand, and the comments and what it was attracting was never anything about the case, never anything about Sebastian. It was always just a bunch of stupid, dumb, nothing, and it was doing no good. Literally none of the we were always going over, okay, oh my God, the surveillance footage just came out. Okay, well now we got this dispatch that you can hear the cadaver dog, not the cadaver dog, but you could hear the dog and the audio of the cop with the dog and going into the retention pond, and then we had these reports that were coming out. Like, we were always trying to talk about what was happening, and it never kept to it. It never kept to it. But I'd like to keep back up with it again, because this case was something that we talked about quite a bit. And it's really sad how everything just got so topsy-turvy and focused on the wrong thing. And again, I don't really care about lawsuits very much, but I think that if they're done correctly, then they could bring about a lot of information. That was one thing that really disappointed me with what was going on with the Kylie Rodney lawsuit against Ryan Upchurch, because I mean, he's smart assing and do whatever he wants to do anyway. But I really was hoping that he was pushing back so hard and like just trying to just do whatever he could do to just be annoying, because he was going to be pushing for like some sort of reports or police reports when it came to Kylie Rodney or anything at all to, cover, get anything. And there was nothing asked for except for Kylie's dad's financial records and like mental health reports. Like, it was just a bunch of petty shit. Nothing at all to do with Kylie's death and the investigation or anything. None of it. Nothing. Didn't ask for nothing. So that was disappointing. So that's why with the WSU lawsuit, with the Idaho 4 case, I'm like, well, you don't deserve to sue the school. Like, that's crazy. You should be suing the Moscow Police Department. You should be suing this horrible investigation. Like, that's who you should be going after. But hey, maybe we'll get some of the testimony from the people from WSU. Hey, maybe we'll get some discovery, because we know that the majority of everything in that filing has to do with the case. So we know that there's a bunch of back and forth. I just, hopefully there's discovery that comes out. Hopefully, if it goes forward, there's information and answers that maybe could lead to something that maybe could trigger somebody's memory into, oh, wait, but I saw this over here, and I didn't even realize that until I heard the hearing on TV the other day. Something like that. I don't freaking know. There's just so much. And I feel like there's never any cases that don't do all of this. And the sad part is that, just like with everything else, like, all of this drama is real drama. Like, it's actually happening. It involves the family. It involves people that are really connected to the case. And then people that have nothing to do with anything come out here and pretend that they have a stance, pretend that they have a story, pretend that they have a connection, and then just make everything even more crazy. And it's just sad all the way around. It's just, humans suck. Humans just suck. I don't know what else to say. Humans just suck. But I appreciate you guys coming in here and coming looking at this. I know that there's a majority of people that were live tonight going over last night. I think Bronx Tales was supposed to be going live tonight. I think Dago was live earlier. I know I think Truth and Transparency was live earlier. I think Harsh said something about it. There's been a lot of people talking about that, but we talked about it. We were there for the whole thing. I was yelling at him in the chat. I yelled some more afterwards, and I'm going to yell some more again tomorrow night. We are going to do an entire review of that freaking interview tomorrow night, and tonight I just needed a break. So while there was barely anybody in here compared to the Idaho case, it was still a very much needed live, because this case is just as important. If we are so hardcore with Idaho because we feel like there's no answers, there's definitely no answers here for Sebastian. Like, even if he's all like messed up and has homicidal thoughts, he's still a kid. He's an autistic child who apparently just doesn't have a very good upbringing, and that's not his fault. There's a lot of problems here. And if somebody is truly responsible for him just poofing into thin air, well, then justice needs to be served. In or outside of that house, it doesn't matter. So we're going to keep up with this. In a few days, we'll do a live and we'll go over the portions of the DCS lawsuit, and we'll watch Katie's interview from February, because I do remember that coming out and then just never having the time to watch it. So we'll do that too. I am still planning, because I have it recorded and almost ready to go, to do a live on Sunday to go over that interview that Gypsy Rose did about a month ago that really caused an uproar, because she is just so full of shit about so many things and out here actively lying about things we already have proof of. And yeah, y'all know how I am at Gypsy Rose. That's my trash out case. That's the one that it's acceptable to have all the trashy shit in, because like, how are you out here just existing in the normal world? This is absolutely crazy. So we're gonna go over that at some point on Sunday. Still doing my UFO disclosure live Sunday morning over on my second channel. There is stuff that we will most likely do in the morning. Before we do the Cyray interview review, I do want to go over the documents in the lawsuit for the EWU versus City of Moscow that just got released. Sarah released some information. Chief Dollinger wrote a statement. There's a couple other statements. We also, I don't think we ever talked about the fact that City of Moscow tried to have the case dismissed and their dismissal was denied. We mentioned it in passing, and I'm not going to sit there and read through all, I think it's like 8 documents or 6 documents or something like that. We'll do a summary of the dismissal being dismissed because the case is going forward, and we'll go and read the newest docs. Again, Sarah posted these. I think this is the one that she did her first video on over on her channel, where she did just a short few minute update on what the documents were. But we'll go through all of those tomorrow in an earlier live, and then Saturday night we're going to sit here and go through the Cyray interview. It'll be a late night because, again, that interview itself is 3.5 hours long, and you already know there's a lot to say. Get ready. So get ready. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Curious Cat and K9 Captain, for each a gifted membership. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We have lots of new members from this live. Thank you also for the super stickers and super chats as well. I appreciate you guys. Y'all are really nice to each other. That's really awesome. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get off of here. I don't think I'm going to post anything later. Probably not. It's Friday. I'm going to go do stuff with the boys, figure out what we're going to order. I don't know what we're going to order yet. But you guys will see me tomorrow. I appreciate you guys being here again with me today. Let me go ahead and make sure that I have the non-Idaho outro video on there, because you know I've been playing the wrong one sometimes, and I'm trying to get more organized. So here we go. All right, I think I have the right one. You guys have a great night. Stay safe. If you go out and have fun, make it safe fun. Make sure you're here tomorrow. Okay? All right. See y'all.